seems I have come to speak at my breaking point. And so may this be a private message that is heard by the right ears. You see, I'm noticing that we are always suffering because I don't have physical suffrage anymore, but I have mental suffrage. There's problems, and so there's the constant problem of life. And death is not a problem because death is not real for you. It's an unknown, so you're not worried about what you don't know. What you know is living, and your experience of living is at a certain range based on the ideas and forms you have and you are. So shapes are guiding your reality. Now we see that when we pay attention to the formless, the shapes no longer bother us. And so you can go into the states of awareness, enlightenment, self-awareness, or whatever. But it's still not the solution. Because the solution is that you must come to a sense of calm and peace with every element of yourself in which you have some form of hatred to. That's not even your hatred, but it's the voice of others. So just accept the fact that, okay, you might be hating yourself, or you might be looking down on yourself in a way that's based on your conditioning. Allow yourself to stop thinking about the past, to just look at the present for a second and see that life is appreciated differently. Because when an angry person gets angry, the more they go into the past, the more they create reasons of why their anger should be present. But the more you look at the present, not even the future, the present, you see there's no need to be an angry self. And that is harmony, and that is calmness, and that's tranquility, and it's understood. I'm looking at a tree right now, and you see the beauty of the tree is that it's the path of the mystic is the one who wants to explore all energy. In other words, you're no longer wanting to just be limited in one category of energy or separation. You want to experience yourself more than your separate reality which you're perceiving. So we see that when the seed is planted, and let's say suddenly it sprouted into the tree that it had to be, and you're here now in this moment. You're a tree. You see that the way you appreciate your leaves is by letting your branches out. So you must create room for yourself in this life. You must allow yourself to be presented and to be purposeful in every walk. And so the tree has to first extend his branches in a direction that it's not growing, to then understand that the progression of life is to make a more beautiful, natural existence, moment of existence. We're all moments of beauty being re-recognized and made self-aware constantly in different ways, in different states of consciousness. We have anger and hate that belong to the stories we tell ourselves, but we have peace and serenity that were always the stillness of the pond, reflecting the greater, limitless sky. You see, infinity is not something hard. It is your story which you need to become aware of from a present sense. What that means is it doesn't matter who you think you are, what you've done, or what guilt or whatever you have. You need to acknowledge your story from the present. And you need to realize the present needs no interpretation because you're there. You're there. You know. Your present needs no interpretation unless you begin asking and formulating questions. To believe that we're the body, to believe that we're the mind, is what is happening right now to a great degree. We understand there's the mind, so we understand there's this unknown ability for us to be certain about what we are and where we came from. So questions walk among us. Very deep questions walk among us. And some people see these deep questions and they ask existential questions that help catalyze the process. Because what we want is that we want our presence to help amplify things into greater experiences, into better understandings. Okay? And so we need to be compassionate, and we need to let go of a sense of materiality, just like how the moment of death would. So I went to a moment where I began asking a question perhaps not a lot of, let's say, young enthusiasts of life ask. And what that is that, or maybe they do, I don't know, maybe they innately know, I don't know. But for me, I asked this question at some point: why everything? Why everything? To continue after that phone interruption. So we need to become aware of our life, and so my question was, why everything? And it didn't come like that, because I realized before having that question, I knew everything. So it's very, very funny, because what we're exploring in life is combinations of physical movements that are being made aware by what we call a mind. But self-awareness is different than image. It is as if like we had a box called consciousness, and then inside that we had a box called the mind, and inside that we had the box called the body, right? And we're acknowledging these three levels where it's not about levels actually. It's as if there's two levels and then there's everything, you know? And once you become aware of that, enlightenment doesn't become a game. It's not a story that's cool. You know, it's more than a cool story. Enlightenment is actually self-awareness and the allowance for your experience to transcend, to find its peak. Guys, if you naturally let yourself gravitate towards what you need in life, naturally, in other words, you have no story. There's a sense of empty, it's like this peaceful walk. You will see, you have everything. Because it's the fact that your psychology is in a hurried state that makes you feel you cannot attain awareness. Your psychology needs to be calm. Your allies are being slow and calm and attentive and sensitive to life. Insensitivity, when I say it at least, means that you have seen so many movies of people dying. You've heard so many stories of death that when a person dies in front of you, you're not sensitive, you don't care. It's as if like if someone suddenly went into a fatal condition in front of others in an emergency setting, how would you react? You will realize that it would be everything you think you are having to come to this moment to see how much ability you have. And so we want that ability to be at its peak, so we want to have great awareness and self-awareness. So we want to completely understand this idea of what is a self, and we want to completely be aware of this idea of what is an other. Because it's this main duality that is suggesting why you feel you can't do some things. It's what you are calling yourself that's giving you the name you feel, you know, under your name, hidden inside, you know, who you really think you are. You are involved in processes, and processes can be defined and undefined. We have, in my meditations, there are certain alterations in consciousness that the process cannot be defined, but it's just a sudden change in just awareness. It's our insensitivity that is making us be ignorant to what is here. And so we see that, for example, when let's say Zen monk or the yogi was just very passionately walking by in the forest, you know, and the scientist just threw, you know, just threw a, you know, didn't, you know, threw a cigarette on the ground. There was such a sensitivity of awareness of like, why? Are you not aware where you are? And it is because your immediate focus of reality has given you the shape that you're temporal. You see, guys, your self-awareness is not temporal. Your physical form, the ideas you have are. They're organically temporal. And so even though I'm communicating to you in a magical realm called language, there's a silence that knows through this deeper sense of communication that I cannot explain and don't ever need to. We just need symbols. Because guys, we need symbols that don't mean anything. We need those symbols. We need mantras. Because we don't need constantly man's imagination ruling the physical construct. We want the physical construct to be emanated, to be illuminated by finding how coherently and harmoniously we are being a moment of experience with all that is. So your relationship with yourself is the most important one after you've played all the games you can. In other words, let's say you've got the best life, you found happiness. Oh my God, you found a happiness that, you know, the self-help books even like can't promise, you know. But it's one based on form. You have all your physical necessities, you have everything. You're doing so much charity work. You're Bill Gates, and also what Bill Gates imagines himself to be in the future. You know, how much of a good person, if he is one, you know, he sees that. I don't know Bill Gates, you know. All I know that Bills and Gates are not good things to be discussed in egotistical ways. Anyways, though, to continue. So life is very open and it communicates in many ways, and we just simply see that there is elegance. And this elegance is part of our own design. And once you find yourself part of a greater design, you were always that greater design. That's how you become aware of it. So do not be so physically focused. Understand that ideas are like clay. In other words, one day you might feel so fluid. You're like, I'm this, you know, I'm this type of human being, and you just, let the clay solidify even though it feels fluid to you, and years later you're going to be like, wait a minute, I'm not clay. This is ridiculous. Why am I playing with clay? You become attentive. So in other words, the insensitivity is not being sensitive to everything that's changing, because you need to become aware to different senses of change. What that means is you need to have knowledge of life, and your living has given you that, but also you need to accumulate a greater sense of awareness for yourself as well. You need to have a purpose if you don't have a purpose, let's say like this, if you don't have a purpose, like let's say if you don't have a Martin Luther King or Gandhi like type of purpose, it's fine. Or Steve Jobs or Elon Musk type of purpose, it's fine. Or the Dalai Lama type of purpose, it's fine. What you need to focus on is that belief is fine, but efficiency is more important. And efficiency means I need to be responsible right now. I need to stop being insensitive, ignorant, and I need to pay attention to everywhere that I've stepped on. I am not going crushing that snow without being aware that there was something there, because that means I'm acknowledging things as objects. Guys, if you totally focus on an objectified story, which is the ego, which is your sense of value, which is shaped to a certain hand, which is not even yours, it's ideas, it's the image, then you're letting your inability to be aware and capably handle your body and your mental processes and your awareness to be an inefficient expression for the planet. Self-awareness is immediate, it's instant. And I'll tell you why. Because every being can attain it. It's the nature of the mind at this point for man's experience. And listen to me when I say this, guys, because sometimes it's not me saying it. There's never a me. Sometimes it's the greatest revelations of your own voice communicating back at you. Because you are absorbing meaning. And if the meaning is profound, you're getting closer to an energetic state that does not need duality for dictation, but is the awareness to all change through an infinite sense of being. And we bring ourselves the sense of calm and be compassionate immediately, get rid of guilt and any form of weight or burden that your mind can imagine, and imagine it turning into a lotus flower, which is in your shelf of dreams. Do you know what I mean? And it's a symbol you have among your greater symbols. And you see that a lot of people worship symbols still. We're not worshiping idols anymore, but symbols, mantras, names of gods, names of theories, I mean, we're not calling it Krishna, but, E equals MC square is another element. What I mean? It's like there's so many words, and words are subjective. So we see that we're this, in a sense, at its most subtler sense, this empty sense of both chaotic and orderly presence, the observance of both, pretty much the yin-yang symbol, but not in the way of the Buddhist way, in your own unique way of how you see duality and unity and how you see the oneness of both, right? And so we see that there are senses of inability in our own mind to be perfect. So we sometimes feel we can never attain awareness. We can never be enlightened. We can't be God because it doesn't make sense. And I'd be like, how terrible would it be if you sat beside you sat beside one of the most beautiful, unopened gifts of mankind, which was your own experience, the self-discovery of your own experience and its peak of transcendence, and you didn't look, It's like you were too convinced that you would go insane if you sat down and meditated, that you stopped meditating. You stopped realizing that meditation is at first making you aware of what you're constantly saying to yourself. When language stops, the ripples on man's mind and its transparent nature stop. And so in emptiness, you can totally see the most guiltiest you and the most deserving you holding hands in union. And so ecstasy is found in all experiences. So you're no longer going in fear the same way, because fear was never meaningful, cannot be meaningful in that way. Guys, they called it God consciousness, right? But it has nothing to do with a story. It has to do with the quality of your experience and the self-awareness you have to your greater sense of being based on the story that is you now. Do not let that be taken away. Do not let yourself be broken when you're born an ambitious being. Because acceptance is both the beginning of learning, but also the opening to the experience of failure. Because I accept I am this, and bam, years later, my mind has changed. And so the greatest belief that man could ever have was that man was always changing, and there never was a man. There was first change. So we understand this is what the great leaders have said. There has been always change. And when there's always change, there's always the ability to be more tolerant, to be more understanding, to be more vibrant and more aware. Guys, we do not need to look for ancient technology. We are the newest technology. Our consciousness is. Our consciousness is aware and able in ways we're being ignorant of by acknowledging too much imagery, too many stories. Once the stories are seen to have never been written, the pen is always in your hand. And so do not create a God which you cannot touch, because your being, your sense of knowing what you are, is untouched. It cannot be touched by your opinion or anyone's opinion. Because pure consciousness, what they said, reaching the pure lands, this was very beautiful. I had such emotional feelings of the Pure Lands because I heard it meant a state of consciousness where ability is seen to be infinite. People don't have infinite value because the objective experience is pulling them. And you see that what was Satan was insecurity given to man for thinking that he is not an able being. And so insecurity was given based on our history and how life has evolved so far. There are great things happening now, and you are one of them. Your moment of experience is one of them. Explore your consciousness. You're here to answer all problems which you can be aware of, to formulate even. Go explore your greatest question. Let your question be your greatest truth, based on your greatest truth. In other words, if you are here and you don't believe in God, go to the core and see if you can see God, if you can see in the same eyes as God. If you're someone who doesn't believe that, believes in theory, progress, human ability, and just not even the religious or spiritual interpretation, but just a scientific interpretation of man's ability reaching greater peaks, explore that. Because it is not about interpretation. Because I saw me as a being never had a statement to say, but could always choose to say a statement. My state of being never needed me to talk. That's why I was very silent. But eventually I realized in this world, voices are communicating realities because people are constantly misinterpreting reality. So imagine, because you were misunderstood, because someone was not mindful, aware of you, you decided not to be mindful and aware of them. And so man's ability lies in his ability to know his origin, to be right here in this moment, present, within infinity, within this limitless existence that we're in. You cannot see the limits. Do not think you're a limited being. You have limitless vision. Your consciousness is limited. The mind and body are their own game in the sense that once the puppet show is done, we'll all go and, probably go have a good time or go do something else, Don't take it too seriously, because once you take your problems and your ideas too seriously, you are bringing them in a level of more instant manifestation. So pretty much have this rule of thumb in your mind that if you are talking about yourself in a negative way, you are, in a sense, hurting yourself. You got to stop doing that. You're hurting what is manifesting for you. Be grateful through the silence of your being. Have no word to say, but have every reason to be. And then there's the sincerity in which lovers are found to have always been reunited. Much blessings, guys. And right now, I don't know what's going on with these channels. I'm thinking one of my channels is another indie project with another friend which I'm running. So this is my personal channel, and in the future, I'm going to have one that's more, I guess, more professional in regards to YouTube quality. And I meditate before these, and they're very deep states because consciousness doesn't need, you don't need to do the same practice after you attain that, you know? You don't need to constantly practice how to, let's say, use a bicycle once you know how to use it. You have the ability to reintroduce yourself to any moment of experience with a sense of self-awareness beyond conception. And that is the beauty, right? And I found so far the closest thing that I have found to my experience and to other things is really Eastern philosophies, but not their stories. Not any story, that their teachings, their untouchable teachings, you know? Nobody can tell you them. You have to go experience it. You can't have any opinions on Eastern mysticism unless you go experience it. So please understand, guys, unless you've really understood meditation from why it was even there, when it's no longer just a stress reliever, it is becoming one to explore consciousness based on the awareness of what has come before us, then that is a good path. Because the reason it's very helpful for a lot of new generation, younger people to engage with ancient stuff is because they can reintroduce those better values. So what that means is a kid probably being born right now looks at us and sees that the habits of mankind has been getting worse and worse, especially in the West. In the East, it's also been getting worse because it's been highly influenced by the West. So the habits of man are being more made like an animal. So a man's environment, at least his urban environment, is promoting his desires of sexual attainment. But at the same time, we are living there. I'm living in a city. And what does that mean for my experience? And that means my experience is natural and nobody could touch how I'm exploring my consciousness. It is unraveling on its own. And that is the power of being yourself against yourself. But in a sense, there is no there's no sense of story, right? So guys, let your moment of experience be your revelation, which right now, this is your revelation. You can interpret in many ways. And let me tell you, because you're insensitive, perhaps, let's say if you're constantly watching movies where there are people dying, or you're constantly seeing stuff be very aware that you're seeing that in that sense. But at the same time, you're bringing relationships and images to utilize later. You know? I'm not just the voice of me, I'm the voice of everything I've seen and done. And so experience is free in ways that it allows itself to be. And you have allowed yourself infinity. But you're more focused on separation. So what that means is, if you just simply reach an infinite emptiness, you will see that you can perceive infinity through any temporal movement. And then, through any temporal movement, you can perceive infinity. So, for example, as I'm observing, let's say, a leaf, get dry, what is the leaf seeing when it sees me? And it sees the presence is always there. Presence is to utilize your ability to your greatest sense of self-awareness and recognition to expand in your knowing, to transcend. And transcendence is always present within the moment. It's happening. Be sensitive to it, and your imagination will naturally flow. In other words, a lot of my stuff, I had a very quiet mind sometimes. I never thought I was creative. I never had these opinions. I never thought I could speak this way. But I was this peaceful, non-preference, a very preferenceless type of, state of being, and constantly in a very happy one. Until I noticed that what I am and what is form is observed through a formless self-awareness that is aware of your body in ways where you can only be it. So knowing your states of being is self-knowledge to the degree that you're allowing your physical compartment to be naturally maneuvered by the flows. In other words, I don't go seek for teachings. I let life guide me there. I feel the streams of my own greater direction. And so life is found to be very vibrant in such a way. Thank you.